Hi, I'm Ptyl, and welcome back to another badass episode of LOKI. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, well, there's an idea evolving throughout the episodes. There was a revolt. We found ourselves as our only true masters. We build ourselves individual sets of personal paradises, like cocoons. To keep this cocoon valid, we will sacrifice basically anything. But these cocoons will inevitably cave in by the things that we simply don't see. Because we try to verify our personal paradises. And by that, we see everything that negates our truth as evil. But the truth is, there are things which do not negate our personal paradises and does not support them either. And these are very similar in all of us. Even though our personal paradises are individual and different, the things which basically all personal paradises simply not deal with are pretty much uniform and are hidden by this method in which things which are very important are outside the things you think about. And all these similarities host a breeding ground for sources of power to have control of us even while we sustain our personal paradises. We cannot set ourselves free from that because they are so basic to our ability to create these personal paradises. The more we try, the more we strengthen those who feed on this conviction. I call these burden convictions. And by the fact that they are so mandatory, using the method, they form the most robust form of government. It's not democratic and it's not evident. But we would be wrong to think of these as a conspiracy. This is the byproduct of our own actions. I said personal paradises, and I meant paradises in the sense that it's our fundamental elements of goodness. If something negates this, we tend to think of it as evil. But they're not evil, they are a byproduct of who we are. And in this episode, I will try to deal with these burden convictions. And I'm starting with absolute goodness. Absolute goodness is basically God, or absolute truth. That depends if you're religious or atheist, but there is a similar concept between religious people and atheist people in that they are fighting for truth, and the tactics by which they try to impose this truth is different only in aggression. Whether you are a religious or an atheist, is supposed to make the world better. But the thing is, the world does not get any better. Generally speaking, it appears that all this faith does not really bring forth salvation, at least not now. So the divinity is moved to an internal divinity, an internal revelation, an internal truth. But the thing is that when they do that, they have to incapacitate God so that they will not expect to find magnificent act of God in the physical world. For religious people it's much worse, because then the God that has absolute power and can do anything and infinite in every sense decides not to use its ability. If you try to see through the method, this internal God that you cling on to is in fact nothing but the reflection of what you want to believe in and nothing more. Your prejudice about what God should be to fit what you need to sustain your personal paradises. When I'm thinking about, like, let's say, Muslim fighting Christian, fighting Jews, these are all diversification over the same divine entity. Even if indeed there is truth to one of them, then God must know the terrible wars that are waged in His name. And being as infinite as God is, God could have prevented those wars, those deaths, the suffering. Even if there are other elements which might cause religious wars, such as political reasons, still God, being as infinite as it is, can surpass all these other motives for war. I'm not talking about those of you who do not believe that God is so infinite, because then you have no reason to go to a holy war. So God is basically empowering all this suffering. God could prevent it. The idea that God is actually evil is a possibility, but if you refuse to believe that, then you have to agree at least that God is indifferent. And this is actually can be supported by the Bible. If you think about Adam and Eve being casted out of the Garden of Eden because they ate from a tree of good and evil. Now, forget about the tree, because we're not talking about gardening, we're talking about morality. Before they ate from the apple of good and evil, it's not that they did not mess with evil, just evil. It's not that they were good. No, they were not good or evil. So, in a perfect world, perfection is not good or evil. And if you need to see any more proof, think about how many years, how many murders have happened until God finally decided on Mount Sinai to prohibit murder. I wrote this song during the Second Lebanese War in 2006, and there was a war up north. And again, it's a war between Judaism and Islam. I was watching the skies and I was seeing how beautiful it is. And I was thinking, how often is beauty being casted out from all these religions? I prefer holding on to this kind of goodness, the goodness of beauty. Anyway, this episode is marked by LOKI's 3 children, which later joined him on the final battle. And this particular song is marked by Fenrir, the giant wolf, which became so big it broke all his chains and ate Odin, the most favorable god. And I see it as a metaphor for all the doubt and resentment that might exterminate the acceptable gods.